I wasn't really hatched. I was born. I was born in a very bad situation. I lived in Southern California. When I was born, my mom had a problem with heroin. So I was born on heroin. That's all she did was heroin. And my dad did heroin too. He did drugs, and all they did was heroin. So when I was born, they thought I'd be retarded. I would have all these problems and stuff. I'm serious. I know it's bad. And I thought, I didn't know. I was like 2 months old. And at 2 months old, my mom made a decision that she would rather have a life with drugs than a life with me. Now, I live 60 miles north of LA. Anybody know that? A little town called Oxnard. Actually, it's not two. It's not little. It's actually like 1.5 million people. It's just crazy. It's like little. Yeah, seriously. So I go and my real mom leaves me at 2 months old. And she just pursued a whole life of drugs and stuff. And my dad, he didn't know what to do, so he signed all the papers to have me adopted. Because he didn't know what to do. So after signing all the papers for the adoption and stuff in Ventura, California, he goes to the place and he goes to drop me off. Everything's signed. All he had to do was drop me off and turn around and leave. And for some reason, he couldn't. I guess I drooled cute or something. I really don't know. But he took me back, and he moved in with my grandma, and they're trying to help him work things out and stuff like that. And he went to rehab for about 3 years. And my dad got lonely. When my dad got lonely, he married what is now called the Wicked Witch of the West, or Wicked Witch of the East. I really don't know which one she was. I mean, I looked all over for the house and the broom and the hat, but I couldn't find it. He married my stepmom. It was horrible. Never once, not once did she ever say, Jeremy, I love you. Jeremy, I like you. Nothing. Every time I screwed up, she would sit there and go, Jeremy, go in your room, take off all your clothes. So I would go in my room, and I'd be like 6, 7 years old. I'd take off all my clothes, and she'd take a belt, and it had all the nickels on it because it was my dad's belt, and she would beat the dog out of me. One time she grabbed a hammer handle and she started beating me. She broke 2 ribs and a hip because I stole 5 nickels, 25 cents. Every time I did something wrong. She was put in jail twice for child abuse. I went to a foster home 3 separate times. I didn't want to leave. So I'd sit there, and I remember one time, and I was sitting in my bed, and I don't even know what time it was. I couldn't sleep. And I heard the door open, and my dad bonded her out from jail. She opened my door, and I thought, oh my gosh, is she going to say, I'm sorry, Jeremy, I love you, Jeremy, I care about you? No, I didn't know. Instead, she walked over to my bed. She got down, she hovered over me, she goes, why don't you just die? You're worthless. This whole family's in shambles because of you. It's all your fault. She said it to me over and over. Every time she beat the snot out of me, I'd be naked in the bathtub, and I'd just be just convulsing because she just got the snot beat out of me. And it stuck in my head. Different. I wasn't smart in school. I wasn't. I could barely spell the alphabet. I'm horrible in spelling. My wife has to spell everything. Every time I screw something up. So at the age of 12, I started hanging around with some kids that were just bad. You can find them anywhere. And I just had that magnetic thing for those type of people. And I started listening to music, and I started rebelling. I started doing drugs. I was 12 years old when I tried acid for the first time. I was 12 years old when I did cocaine for the first time. I was 12 years old when I smoked pot, cigarettes, drank, and I started a pattern. And I started listening to music. And the very first record, it wasn't a CD, it was a record, it was the big black ones. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. And it was AC/DC Fly on the Wall. That's old. And it progressed, and it progressed, and it progressed, and it progressed. And I started listening to Metallica, and I started listening to Megadeth, and I started listening to Anthrax, I started listening to Slayer, and I just progressed, and I pressed, and I started listening to Cannibal Corpse, and I started doing all this other stuff. And it got insane. At the age of 15 years old, I was smoking cigarettes. And I stole from my dad. My dad would take his hat off, and he'd put all the cigarettes and stuff down in there, and he'd leave and take a nap for about a half hour to 45 minutes, and he'd wake up because he worked odd hours. And I was sitting there, and I stole some cigarettes, and I went outside, and I started smoking a cigarette, and he comes out from around the garage door, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I don't know. I was like, smoke coming up from behind and stuff. He picked me up, and he threw me through the garage door. And he picked me up again, and he put me up against the other side of the garage door, and he ran back, and he goes, "Swing at me!" And he's yelling, screaming, cussing me out, "Just swing at me. Just give me a reason why I could just beat the snot out of you and not stop." I was scared out of my mind. I was like, "Dad, no, just let me go. Just let me leave." And he goes, "Fine, leave." "Really? Leave, go." I got two other sisters, a half-sister and a step-sister. And they're crying, and they're both younger. And I go to my room, and I have one of those little green medicine suitcase-looking things. I don't know, bowl. I start putting stuff in. I didn't know what I was doing. I put stuff in. I closed it. I got my backpack, and I filled my backpack full up, and I put it on and I started going. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting for him to say, "Jeremy, stop. I made a mistake." See, at the same time, my dad has never once said, "Jeremy, I love you. Jeremy, I like you. Jeremy, I care about you. Jeremy, nothing." I was a social outcast of the whole family. The black sheep. In fact, the only thing I know how to do right all the time is screw up. Just don't think of what am I going to do. So I go outside my house, and I'm waiting for him just to say, "Jeremy, stop, wait." But it didn't happen. I went around the corner, and there's a bus stop. And the bus stop, it's called SCAT, and it's Southern California Area Transit. And I was fixing to get on the bus, and I was I don't even have money. I have not one dime. I'm 15 years old. And finally my dad come around the corner in his car, and he stopped. What's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. He gets out of the car. Pulls his hands out of his pocket. I think he's going to give me a hug. Instead, he shook my hand and he gave me $20 and he says, "I'll see you later." Right there, I built the biggest wall in my heart I've ever built in my life. So I got on the bus. I started riding the bus all the way around, past the depot. It took about 2 hours every time I rode it. Finally, I had to go to the bathroom because my bladder's only so big, and they don't have a porta potty on the bus. And I get off at a friend's house. I get off at my friend's house, and I start telling their parents this whole sob story about how I'm the victim and all this other stuff. And I started staying with them a little bit, spending the night, until I was caught stealing because I had the habits to support. And I got kicked out of there, and I went to another friend's house, and I did the same thing. I just stole from them. And I went to another friend's house, and I stole from them. And finally, I found myself living in a 16-foot trailer in Santa Paula, California, picking oranges on a 100-acre orange range with a bunch of immigrants. I still hate oranges. It is not fun when there ain't no toilet paper and you look at an orange peel and you're like, citric acid. So I'm sitting there, and I started doing more things. I started doing more drugs, and I started doing more things. Dropped out of high school 3 separate times. 3 separate times.